Over the last 2 weeks, we've been discussing the rules of algebra. So far, we have 3. Number 1, the variable wants to be alone. Number 2, we use opposite math to remove things. And number 3, whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side of the problem. Today, we are going to discuss the one situation where you don't follow these rules. Let's start with a situation where you do. Z represents an unknown number. We are dividing that number by 7, and we are getting the result -2. This is a situation where we use the rules. Our variable, Z, wants to be by itself, down here. Nothing between it and the equal sign. But it is currently attached to this divided by 7. So we need to get rid of divided by 7. To do that, we'll use rule number 2, opposite math. What's the opposite of divided by 7? It's times 7. Multiplication and division are opposites. Rule number 3 applies. Whatever we do to the left side, we have to do to the right side. So we also have to multiply the -2 by 7. Let's see what happens. These guys blow each other up. They no longer exist, which means the Z comes down. And then we do -2 multiplied by +7, which gives us -14. If we want to go back and check our work, we can replace the letter Z in the original problem with -14 and see if it works. So -14 replaces the Z, divided by 7 gives us -2. That's mathematically correct, so we have correctly identified the value of Z, -14. We can do the same thing down here for this red problem. We want to get rid of divided by -7, which means we need to multiply by -7, since multiplication and division are opposites. We got to do the same thing on this side. These blow each other up. The Z comes down, equals, and then -2 multiplied by -7. A negative multiplied by a negative gives us a positive 14. That's all well and good. Opposite math works here. All 3 of the rules work here. What about this situation? 14 divided by an unknown number gives us 2. You'll notice that there's an asterisk, a little red star, next to rule number 2 on this slide. And that's because this is the only situation where opposite math doesn't work. If we look at this as a division problem, and we think that in order to undo division, we have to use the opposite, which would be multiplication, then we would multiply 14 and 2. But that gives us 28. And if we check our work and replace the variable with that number, well, that's just not true. 14 divided by 28 does not give us 2. So if we can't use multiplication to undo division in this case, what do we need to do? This is the one situation where we don't use opposite math. If the variable is on the bottom, number 2 doesn't apply. Instead, we know what x has to be to make this work. 14 divided by 7 gives us 2. We know that our answer has to be 7. That's the only way this works mathematically. 14 divided by 7 is 2. How do we use 14 and 2 to get that 7? We have to divide. 14 divided by 2 gives us 7. Another way that we can write division, remember, is as a fraction. We could say 14 over 2 equals 7. Which leads us to our strategy for this situation. If the variable is on the bottom, you take the variable and everything on the right-hand side and you switch them. So instead of having 14 over x equals 2, we have 14 over 2 equals x. And we know from over here that 14 divided by 2 gives us 7. And if we go back to the original problem and replace the variable with a 7, 14 divided by 7 gives us 2. Here's another example. 20 divided by j equals -5. We know that if we tried to use multiplication here, 20 multiplied by -5, we would get -100. And if we put -100 in for our variable, that math doesn't work. Because the variable is on the bottom, we cannot use opposite math. We have to instead use our new strategy. If the variable is on the bottom, switch it with whatever is on the other side. So this problem becomes 20 divided by -5 equals j. And once we do that, simple division tells us that 20 divided by -5 gives us -4. We go back to our original problem and test out whether that's correct. 20 divided by -4 does indeed give us -5. If the variable is on the bottom, swap it with whatever is on the other side. 2 more examples. 100 divided by x equals 20. We can't use opposite math because 100 multiplied by 20 would give us 2,000, which obviously can't be right. So instead, we're going to swap the variable on the bottom with whatever's on the other side. So our new problem is 100 divided by 20 equals x. And we know that that value should be 5. Our final example, we have -45 divided by j equals -15. If the variable is on the bottom, swap it with what's on the other side. -45 divided by -15 equals j. And that tells us that j is equal to +3. Your homework due before tomorrow's class is in your homework folder on OneNote. It's listed as 29th of September, Intro to Algebra Worksheet 2. I'll see you tomorrow morning.